Mysterious drone sightings continue to cause a stir on the East Coast. This weekend, police arrested 2 people for what they call hazardous drone operations near Boston's Logan Airport. Donald Trump's pick for the White House National Security Advisor, Florida Congressman Mike Waltz, says the American people deserve answers.
We now disrupt your regularly scheduled programming.
Greetings, fellow wanderers. I'm Fred. This is my brother Jay, and together we are your hosts for Wander Beyond, exploring the unseen, understanding the unsaid. So yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world right now, and rather than jump into a singular topic, we thought maybe we would just do an improv episode. We're going to talk about some of the strange stuff going on and just see where this conversation takes us.
A lot of weird stuff going on these last couple of weeks.
Yep. Just 2025 has not disappointed so far. From moment one, it's been crazy.
Yep.
A lot of shootings happened. Where was it? Was it in Times Square? There was a shooting during the New Year's celebrations. I don't know if it was Times Square or if it was, maybe it was in New Orleans, but there was some sort of, it's probably happened everywhere. It just didn't hit the news cycle, but there were shootings during that. Of course, there was the attack in New Orleans and the Cybertruck blowing up against Trump Towers in New York. There were some other things going on too. There were some school shootings. There was all kinds of stuff going on. The one that I want to kick off by starting with, and I bet 80% plus of our audience here has experienced the exact same thing. That it was about a week ago now. We had at least 48 hours, probably closer to 72 hours, where we had a thick, unmoving fog. And it covered a majority of the United States. And just recently, I found out that it's actually a global phenomena, that it actually covered a lot of Europe and the UK, Scotland, a lot of Western Europe. So, I don't know. I think that in and of itself is a strange thing. And the sun never tried to burn off the fog. You know, a lot of times you get that fog in the morning, and even if it's a foggy day, it changes throughout the day. But this wasn't. It was a thick, steady fog through the whole day. A lot of people reporting a lot of strangeness with that. I have a little bit to say on it. We have 2 cameras outside of our house that just run 24/7. I didn't pull any video off of it. It wasn't recording, but what I saw with my own eyes through the cameras, when you look through the IR, the infrared camera that's built in those, it didn't look like fog. Like you could see like normal, but it looked like you were seeing through snow, like you were in a heavy snowstorm. It wasn't like little fog, little moisture specks. It was like thick white snow. It looked like it was snowing outside, like a wind was blowing. It was going all over the place, crazy, on both cameras on both sides of our house. That was going. I see online that a lot of people confirm the same thing. We have a wood burning stove here because it's wintertime, and so I'm running it pretty much 24/7. I noticed that during that fog period, it was like the atmosphere itself was thick and heavier than normal. All the smoke that would come out of our chimney from the stove didn't expand and dissipate into the sky like you would expect. The wind didn't, blow it off and it just dissipated into the air. What happened was it just sort of stayed around the house. It just floated back down around the house. So it always smelled like we were burning something outside. My wife asked me, "Hey, did you just put something in the fire? Because the smoke is everywhere and everything smelled like smoke." I didn't put this together until after, but I had about a 2-day long headache. The first day was awful. It was like a migraine where it affected me. I couldn't do anything. I just laid on the couch and tried not to fall asleep. But a lot of people were complaining about physical ailments, a lot of flu symptoms. I have some personal friends on the West Coast and down south who there and their families were pretty sick. And, there's stuff going around. Is it connected? I don't know. there's just a lot of stuff going on at one time, and maybe it's connected, maybe it's not, but there's
Well,
enough.
you were saying in the infrared camera that it's looking like snow, right? And I've seen a couple of videos out there.
Yes, in
So
fact,
then what is that? What is it made out of?
yeah. So I'm gonna play a video that someone else took. I didn't take it, but what you're gonna see looks exactly like what I'm talking about, where the IR camera, you could see the field, like it wasn't like a flashlight, but you can see clearly where the IR camera, where the light ended, and everything in that IR light looked just like this, like blowing snow. I'm going to share a video here, and this helps describe. This is exactly what I could see in my cameras. Now, here's the weird thing, though, was if I looked outside with my eye, it looked like fog, very, very thick fog, but only the camera picked up the snow part, which is strange. And if you watch this woman's video, it's nighttime and she's outside with a flashlight, and the light of the flashlight is picking up all the snow. So it's very strange. If you look at it with just your plain eyesight, all that snow stuff isn't immediately
So that was my next question: is did this look just like normal fog to the naked eye?
Yes. To me, when you walked outside, we live maybe, I don't know, maybe 50 yards from a major river in the area here, and I couldn't see the river. It was by the time we got to the end of our hill, it was just white or gray, kind of a, and that's another thing. Fog is sort of like white or like a light gray color. This was sort of like this medium gray, like a metallic gray color. It was a dark fog. We had the lights on because it was dark in the house. So I'm going to try to share this video here. Okay, check this out. Oh, if I can.
It's not.
So this is what I could see.
Why? What is this? I have never, ever seen this. This isn't fog. It acts like fog. And there is a very weird smell to it. It's very chemically. We actually thought somebody was burning something out here. Sorry, my husband keeps moving the light all over the place. But yeah, that's what it looks like for real. That's not fake. I'm too old for AI. That's real crap. Right there. Okay, this is weird. We're in.
So yeah, that's how it looked to me. And if you watch the video too, that what I was describing, like you can see the snow, but you can see through the snow. You can see the buildings and the lights behind it. But with your naked eye in the daytime, it didn't look like that. It looked like fog. So there's the day after all that happened, I went outside. We have a small chicken coop outside, and I went out to take care of them. And all over the top of it, this would have been the third, maybe the fourth morning since the beginning of that fog. There were these granules. Here, let me pull up the pictures so everybody can see. So this is what was on top of my chicken coop. I can't really zoom in here, but it wasn't like snow.
Almost looks like dry ice.
Yeah, it was these, little, and if you held them in your hand and like I rubbed them in my fingers and they melted, like they would disappear, and it was moisture in your hands, but it was very, very dry feeling. It didn't feel like snow or ice. It did melt, but it didn't feel like frozen water. It was very, very dry feeling.
Too bad you couldn't put it under a microscope.
Yeah, in hindsight, I wish I had done so much more documenting. But when you're in the moment, I wasn't thinking, and it didn't. I didn't think to do that. But yeah, so that's what was left over after the fog, and it was foggy, it was cold, so could this be just frozen water? But it's if you look at this picture, there's no sort of crystal structure the way that water freezes. It's not like that hoarfrost where water collects on water and creates these these long spiky shapes. These are just little tiny beads that just. And was this just stuff floating in the air? I don't know. Maybe I didn't see it landing. So I don't know. I don't know if the two things are related, but this just looks awfully weird.
So where did this fog all cover?
Well, that's why, if you remember, I texted you to say like, "Hey, are you seeing the same
Right.
fog that I am?" And you said no. And so I'm in northern Wisconsin. I know you're out west.
So I'm up in the mountains near Lake Tahoe, so where I'm up pretty high. So
Okay.
this is probably.
So you didn't have the fog, but I know that I was watching videos from everywhere. I know it was East Coast and West Coast for sure, California, New York, all that, because a lot of those videos are coming from there. I live in the Midwest, and Wisconsin was covered border to border. There wasn't a square inch of Wisconsin that wasn't covered by it. I saw videos coming out of like Scotland and the UK. In fact, there's another video clip I'm going to share with you quick here. Present screen share. Here, watch this one.
Whatever it is, they got a sore throat, they had to go to bed, they couldn't sleep, they were bunged up, they had migraines, they lost all their energy. And not only them, everyone in the household. There's mums reporting on it saying all the kids are ill. We've got people in Kentucky, we've got people in Sweden, we've got people in Finland, all reporting the same thing. The fog has made them sick. And it's scenarios like this that always have an adverse effect. Whatever they're doing in the skies, whatever they're spraying, whatever this fog is, they're obviously doing it for a reason, but it is going to wake people up. People have had enough. They're sick of being poked. They're sick of being prodded. They're sick of poison in the air and poison in the food, poison in the milk, poison in the minds. We're being pummeled in more ways we can imagine to demoralise us over a period of time. So when things get to a critical point and everyone's screaming out for a saviour, the government's going to be there. But they were the ones that created the problem in the first place. Looks like it's conclusive. FogVid 24.
So the obvious question is, where the hell is this stuff coming from?
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, we can only speculate. I know that we've talked a lot about the chemtrail phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same sort of technology? I know after this all happened, I was trying to do a deep dive into government programs that were capable of doing this. And what I found was we just did this episode on a moment's notice, so I don't have it pulled up, but there's several. I personally read probably 6 or 8 different patents that were taken out by the US government in the early 1900s, so like between 1920 and 1940, but that the government took out patents on devices for mass fog creation. Is that connected? I don't know. You would think that I would have been able to find some patents that were newer, but the fact is that they were trying to develop that, and they took out patents on devices that were being created to do a mass fog dispersion over large swaths of land. So the technology exists. I don't know what that would be. Perhaps that combined with all the HAARP weather manipulation and cloud seeding, and who knows?
Because it's like, where is it actually? Is it coming from multiple places? I mean, if it's covering half the globe, that's quite a bit.
It is. So, it's got to be something bigger than just something locally and ground based, because people would have been able to detect that or see it. So is it something satellite based? So were they able to somehow manipulate the atmosphere from a distance? I don't know. I know I have some friends who they took a trip down to Florida last winter, and the whole way down, and now that I think about it, it was foggy then too, but there was a lot of fog and rain that they experienced on the way to Florida, and the whole like 2 weeks or whatever they spent down there, and it was more like 3 weeks, that they were very sick the whole time, that they were fine. They went on this trip and drove through the fog and got to Florida, and then they were sick the whole time.
So there was no actual precipitation during this, right?
No, there was no rain. No.
And there's no way that on a normal foggy night, if you shine that light up there like that lady did, you're going to see that same type of thing.
No, exactly. And yeah, what she saw is what I saw in my cameras as well. And it looked just like that, where it was, at first I didn't know what I was seeing. We thought, oh, it's snowing outside. And then my wife looked out the window and was like, no, it's not snowing. It's just foggy. And I was like, well, I guess I'm seeing just the water droplets really close to the camera kind of thing. But it was so deep. My camera covers my whole yard, and I could see through that whole field of vision. I could see all that snow coming down, but it wasn't snowing. It's not like there was 4 inches of snow.
It's too bad somebody or you could have captured that in like a not a petri dish, but like those plates and then
those slide.
Yeah, under a microscope and just see what it looks like.
We have to be more alert with stuff like this.
Yeah.
Like, for the sake of this podcast, imagine if I had done any sort of really reporting on this, any sort of, it's shameful because I had the opportunity. It was right there. It was going on all around me.
Because it'd be interesting to see under a microscope the pattern. There's a thing I'm going to get into down the road on our podcast. It was an experiment by a Japanese, I think his last name was Emoto, where where he was taking he was actually looking at like how the water crystallized, and it would form these geometric patterns based on different things. So if you told, based on intent. So he had, and I don't mean to get too off topic here, but it does tie to this. So he would take one jar of water in one room, another jar in another room. And in one room, they would say, I love you. And the other room, they would say, I hate you. And based on intent, it actually affected the way the water crystallized.
Yep.
And so it would be interesting to look at those, under a microscope and just see what it looks like.
Just see what it was. Right. And yes, that totally ties into our last episode with the Randonautica, with intent creating reality, that you can affect reality with your intention. And that's interesting that all fits. And so, what if it's some kind of weird, I don't want to say cultural, societal thing where the thoughts of everybody as a whole somehow affected the weather? If he used thoughts to affect those ice crystals, could something like that, but just on a much bigger scale?
Oh, 100%.
And
we'll get into that, but there's been big experiments that have been done on a large scale, just like you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
Going back to the Randonautica thing, that was a lot of the research that they did when creating the app and the whole Fatum project and all that, was that they were running quantum number generators, which is the most random set of numbers.
Oh, I think this is what I was referring to. Yeah.
Yes. And so they were running those in different locations all over the globe. And then as a group, they would get together and they actually did like goofy things. Like they would have contests where one group of people were picked the number 6, the other picked the number 47. And they ran these number generators, and they would cheer and like root their team on just like it was a football game. So you had like one person rooting for the number 6, and you had 140 people rooting for the number 48 in all different locations spread around the globe. And they actually went live, cameras and everything, and then watching as the numbers ticked off, and they were all cheering for the numbers. And they found that when you had a larger group of people cheering for a specific number, that number came up at a very unusual rate. So yeah, they were able to to affect the outcome of these completely random number generators that they weren't even physically close to or connected to in any way. They were able to affect those just by a crowd intending it, wanting it to be a certain number.
Right.
And there's a whole list of experiments like that.
Yeah, and then there was some about they were able to tell that like when most of America is asleep, like the energy levels were so much lower than so obviously, when we're awake and something we're doing with our energy and intention is creating reality.
And this might go off on a tangent a bit. I really want to cover all of this in a specific dedicated episode, but they also found that that numbers could be more greatly influenced if you had a pair of people that were deeply in love, that they could affect the numbers more strongly than two complete strangers trying to affect the same thing.
When two or more gather in my name, right?
There you go. The other thing was that they could manipulate numbers backwards in time. So what they did was they had the number generators run, and they just collected all the numbers secretly and paused them. Then weeks later, they had a group of people think about that, and they thought about their numbers, and they all intended, we want to change this to the number 48. I just picked that number at random. And when they went back and looked at those numbers, the number 48 would come up so much more than all the other numbers. And it didn't, that intent didn't seem to be affected by distance or by time.
Very interesting.
And so I don't know. I guess we're a bit afield here. How does that connect to the snow or the fog thing? I don't know. Other than, like you were saying, that through intent, if you can change the crystalline structure of ice, I don't know. Could there be some sort of technology that's tapping into that same effect? I don't know.
And then I think it's also we tend to take things we don't know. So no one really knows what this is, right? And then we just assign something negative to it all the time. How do we know this isn't those drones that everyone sees and it's actually aliens and they're shooting this stuff down on us to help our third eye open up or something? I don't know.
Who knows?
It could be anything, right?
And we want to in the future really get into predictive programming.
Yes.
But do you remember there was the movie The Fog? It was a Stephen King movie. It was based on a book of his, where suddenly the whole world is covered in this fog. And did you see the movie? Right. So it turns out there's these other dimensional, creatures in the fog or whatever. Not that I think that going, I was out in the fog and nothing dragged me away and cut my body in half. But again, it's just the predictive programming thing, that what if that, those movies are being put out there. And there was multiple. I remember back in the 70s, there was a movie called The Fog that I think was based on a different book, but the same kind of thing. The fog's slowly moving in, and then there's stuff behind the fog that you're not supposed to see. And I think that since that first Stephen King movie, I think there was another movie based on the same story. I didn't see that one though. So I don't know. It's just all these things that are probably coincidences, but they start to pile up.
We do have to get into that predictive programming episode. That's going to be an awesome episode.
And so back to the drone thing too. I mean, that's something else that's going on. As far as I know, it's still going on. It's just all of a sudden, just like that, no news is covering it anymore.
Or if people start going, okay, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, we got this story over here that just happened. There was a shooting. Everyone look at this.
There was a shooting.
Right.
There was a shooting. There was the New Orleans shooting. And so, yeah. So the drone thing was strange though. My thoughts are that it's probably a lot to do about nothing. I feel like it was mostly a media-driven event that, hey, if they did news stories on this, they got their clicks and their likes and their views. So they were looking to put up anything to draw out, whatever. And then you get people that want to be part of it, so they're flying their drones and this and that. So I think that was probably a good part of it. However, there was a lot of video. There was a lot of first witness accounts of other strangeness going on with it. There were people taking videos of the drones, where the drones looked large, like the size of small airplanes. Some were saying that they were following the lights, and as soon as they turned their cameras on, the drones went dark and just disappeared. Stuff like that. They were flying over military bases and nuclear facilities, things like that, ports, airports, that kind of thing. So I don't know. There's probably a good percentage that was just amateurs out with their drones, trying to see what they can see. But I think there's a base something inside of all that chatter that is a little strange.
Because people have been flying drones for years. So,
Right.
there's got to be something to it. And then I don't know a whole lot about it, but started to look into it. And then people were seeing orbs that were following these drones, or something was going on there.
Yeah.
And the orbs to me looked an awful lot like when you look at a star through sort of an unfocused telescope, and they make those like perfect geometric patterns. And it looked a lot just like that.
Yep. What is that called? Bokeh effect in photography. That's what it's called. When something is so out of focus that it looks like an undefined blob, but within that blob you see diamonds and geometric shapes in it.
Right. And they're perfectly symmetrical. It's kind of odd.
The drone thing it's strange. Unfortunately I don't know a lot about it. And this kind of thing, the stuff that we don't know about with the drones or the fog or whatever, this is where, Wanderers, we need you to chime in in the comments. We will respond to any comments that you leave. So do that. Tell us what you want to see.
And let us know what you guys know about this, because,
Yes.
over on this side of the States, I don't see any of it. So I would really like to know what's going on. It's interesting to me.
So, yeah, if you, like we kind of touched on, there was the fog, and then there was New Year's, and then New Year's came with the New Orleans terrorist attack, the attack on Trump Towers. There were other attacks during that time, which I wasn't prepared for, but I should have pulled them up. But there was a good 6 or 8 other events that happened at the same time. And then it moved right from that into what's the new one? Bird flu, that's coming up now. But the media, which I believe is just another arm of the deep state of the big brother government. The media is really good at not letting anybody focus on one particular thing for very long, just long enough for it to get in your head where you start to wonder, and all of a sudden, boom, you're on to the next subject.
Yep. And then see how triggered and angry people get, and then just like that, when they move on to something else, that's old news.
Yep. Well, the drone thing, that was all the rage. Everybody, it was starting to hit the news cycle. Oh my gosh, is it UFOs? Is it the government? Is it the military? Is it whatever? And then, oh wait, there's fog, and then all of a sudden the drone thing was just gone 100%. No one's ever, I haven't heard about that in over a week now, 2 weeks or more. Then the fog came up, and that was at least around here, that was a huge news story. And all the all the online chatter, and then now we're on to the next thing, and just the news cycle just jumps.
Do you remember it being this way when we were kids, like in the 80s? Like, I don't. Maybe I just wasn't aware of it, but
I don't. I remember like going out for late night walks with my buddies, going downtown to T&L to buy some sodas or whatever, walking at nighttime when it was foggy, like thick as soup fog. But even that wasn't like this fog that we just saw. It just wasn't.
And I guess I just mean like these rapid succession, like major stories, like just all these wild things that happen.
No, because I think back when I was a kid, at least the news media, the The reporters were interested in getting the scoop and being the first one to report the story and having the most to say about it. And they
Yeah.
they
Still had
they
integrity.
took the time to research things and go out and and beat the pavement and talk to people and get a story. Nowadays that doesn't happen. They just literally the news that you watch in your local news all comes from the AP website. That all the news source, all the local news are getting all their news from the same source.
It's
The
like that
Associated
intro video
Press.
we had where they're all
Yep, exactly. And they all get it from the same place, and there's no investigative reporting anymore. It's just simply not done.
Hmm.
That's too dangerous. Back in the day, I mean, just think of Nixon, right? There's a reporter got wind of that story. He went out and he researched it and started blowing apart the story. It hit the news cycle. All the news channels, ran with it, and it was all the talk until Nixon, resigned and in disgrace and all that. And then, for months after, people are still talking about Watergate. Nowadays, we know for a fact that so much worse has been done, and the media has zero interest in reporting any of it because their marching orders are not to report it.
I don't even think anybody would react to something like that anymore. They'd be like, "Yeah, so what?"
Right. So yeah, I mean, that's a big basis for the show, is just the whole media government arm. And please understand, I'm not presenting this as those liberals, they just, whatever, they don't, that's not what I'm saying at all, because it's on all sides. Well, there are no sides. There's only one thing, and that's the government. It's not left versus right. It's not Democrat. Whatever.
As
It's a
we'll
big
touch
game.
on when we do an episode about the Hermetic principles, it's all very much by design. Very much so. It's the principle of polarity, and
yep,
it's done on purpose.
It's not red versus blue. It's them versus you.
Right.
And most people aren't even aware that that's the case. They pick their binary side.
Yep, and that's what it is. Binary.
It's team go.
Right. There's a reason that Star Wars was the most watched movie of all time. Polarity.
Yeah, I mean, think of all the popular series: Star Wars, Hunger Games, Divergence, Harry Potter, any popular movie. It's all the big deep state versus the little guy, and everyone cheers on the little guy, but no one's cheering the little guy right now. Like, we're actually presented with the stuff that's in those movies, and everyone still wants to support the big empire. It makes no sense.
And the more polarized people are, so think about, like a center, and then the further you get away from center on either side, the easier it is to trigger people. The more polarized you are on either side, the easier it is to make you react and freak out. And that's why it's constantly done. Everything's presented binary.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yep.
Left, right, red, blue. Lakers, Celtics, black, white. Yeah.
Flat round.
Right. Flat round, exactly.
That's a big one.
Yep.
So how do we get out of that trap?
Well, I think first you have to be aware of it, and two, you have to figure out, and this is going to be a part of that episode, is figuring out how to stay centered, because I don't think people know how to do that. I don't think they want to do that until they become aware of what it is. I think people love being binary. I think they love being a devout Republican or a liberal and having those fights at the water cooler. I think they love it.
Yep. I remember when COVID hit and everything was shutting down. I happened to be an engineer at a plant that did a lot of government work, so I was able to work through the whole thing. But I remember people that I was in the office with seemed to, they would deny it if I brought it up, but I know that they thought that was the coolest thing that everything was shut down. It was like living in a movie. And they loved the fact that, they needed papers to go out and drive in their car, and that everybody seemed to really dig the fact that they were being told by this big unknown government that they had to do certain things. And I don't know, it's just everyone just seemed, what's the term, people love their chains, or however
Yep.
that saying goes.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed like they were really excited and liked it, and I was always trying to smack them in the head, being like, what are you talking about? This is insane. I shouldn't have to show papers to leave my house. This is America.
Yeah, there was videos of like a woman getting arrested for taking her kid to the park.
Yep. Oh my God, that used to piss me off. There's that one. That one was a pretty famous one. There was a woman who was dragged away by police because she kept her hair salon open. She did hair and nails, and she was dragged out, on camera into the back of the squad car. There's the famous ones of people outside on the beach by themselves getting arrested and thrown in the cop cars. And there's the one that's my favorite. I think it was in Florida. It might have been California, where someone went out and put a mannequin on a beach chair, like way out by the ocean, and went back and filmed the whole thing from their hotel room. And it's like, the people are like way out in the distance, right? So there's nobody else around, but someone complained, someone called and said, hey, there's someone outside, whatever. The police came and tried to arrest the person for being on the beach, and then were of course embarrassed because it turned out just to be a dummy. But God, we're going to talk about that quite a bit. I have a lot
Wouldn't
of.
that be against social distancing to go in and arrest somebody that's not around anybody else?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's so much of it that just doesn't make any sense.
And then there's like there's pictures and videos of like high school bands and stuff, and they have like a mask, but like it's all cut
with the
out.
hole in it. Yep.
What are we doing?
I know. That's the whole. As long as you have food in your mouth, you're not. You're not susceptible to COVID. That kind of thing.
The COVID knows you're just chewing, so it's going to be like, oh.
Going back to the police thing though, and COVID, it's just a prime example about how we are living in a police state. I have a lot of friends who have businesses who are very strong, back the blue. They got the blue stripe flag all over the place. Mm-hmm. All that along with their Second Amendment and Gadsden flags. Like, no, like that's not how it works. If they're coming when they are going to take the guns, who do you think's going to do all the stomping on the snake? It's not going to be Joe Biden or Donald Trump coming up with an AR knocking down your door. It's going to be local officer friendly, the one who's been at your school kids meetings all the time, and the ones
doing a job,
that just doing their job. Those people that you're backing, those are the people that are going to come knocking down your door in the middle of the night in a no-knock raid.
Yeah. Shut the fuck up and get on the ground.
Well, yeah, and people, that'll never happen. Bullshit. It happened right in front of you and you choose to ignore it. It happened all over the place. It's happening now. Who is it? Fred the Squirrel, right? From that guy's apartment in New York, where he had a podcast where he had rescued a baby squirrel and kept it from dying, nursed it back to health, and it was the cutest thing. And he just had a podcast where he would show videos of his pet squirrel. Someone complained to the authorities, and they literally busted down the guy's door in a no-knock raid, took away his pet squirrel and his pet rabbit, and had them euthanized because he wasn't licensed to have a wild game or whatever in his apartment. What the hell is that all about? How are we not right now in a civil war over that incident?
Right.
What the fuck? How did that not enrage every single American? But it didn't.
But at the same time, they'd be like, yeah, we can't respond to your domestic violence thing because we have way more important things to do.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But, yeah.
So yeah, that's going to have to be some discussions we're going to have. We got to start lining up some guests for this stuff too, even if it's not experts, but just people with a particular interest that we can have conversations with. We got to start pulling some people on here.
Yeah.
About stuff like this. I think it'd be great. I personally have a half a dozen people, maybe more, right off the top of my head that I know would just be jazzed about coming on here and talking about this stuff.
Yeah. We can always get guests and everything on here too. I mean, our viewers.
Yep. Yeah, please chime in with everything you want to hear. You want to be part of this. We would absolutely love to have that happen. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on. And of course, we're what? It's the 5th, so we have 15 days now before the inauguration.
And what do you suppose is going to go down? Because it's been awfully quiet.
It's been quiet, but it's my thought that it's not so quiet anymore. I think that a lot of, there's so many connections that have been made between the New Orleans dude and the guy who blew up the truck. Them and the same guy who the second Trump assassination attempt, the guy that they arrested on the golf course with all the guns and everything out there. All three of those people, the two guys, the New Orleans and the truck bombing thing, they were stationed at Fort Bragg. And the guy who did the Trump assassination attempt, the second one, he spent several weeks visiting Fort Bragg, or was it Fort Hood? Bragg? I think it's Bragg. Just there's a lot of weird connections like that. And I wonder if there aren't a lot of domestically grown sleeper cells that are out there that are all going to start, now that 2025's here, they're all going to start to come awake.
Yeah.
Something I just thought of, that this episode actually will air probably a week after inauguration. So we might have to jump in and do some impromptu stuff the day after that too, just to, if anything goes down. So anyways, I would just say it's my thought that, and with us throwing open the borders and Biden regime letting in millions upon millions of unvetted legal aliens, call them what they are. How many of those are people that came in with intent to harm? How many of those are going to start coming awake now? When if Trump comes in and starts cutting the stuff he says he's going to, how many of these agencies now that start to feel the pressure of those cuts are going to say, okay, it's time, unleash the hounds, let's bring down this regime? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but how can you not think that that's a possibility?
Sure. It's going to be an interesting year. I think this is going to be a very wild year.
Yeah. I agree with you. And it's hard to even say what that is, because you just don't know what you don't know. We got to be prepared for more shootings, I suppose. That's the obvious one. Some of the less obvious stuff, more drone stuff, maybe more weather events.
I mean, just think, it's, what are we, 5 days in? We already have some weird biochemical fog, and we got these drones and orbs things going on. Like, it's going to be a year.
Yeah. Maybe this will be the year where we get the alien invasion finally.
I think we all know it's coming. So Werner von Braun, the guy that headed up NASA, the Nazi scientist,
the German scientist, right?
Right. He talked about on his deathbed, I forget her name. She was like his assistant. And he was telling her in his dying throes, like, listen, there is going to be a staged alien attack. It's, and it was something he kept reiterating before his death.
Sure. He
said it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. So it's going to come.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll have to put that on our docket of upcoming stuff. We should do an episode on that and just the alien phenomena in general. We'll do that. All right. Well, what do you say we wrap this one up?
Okay.
And put it in the books. I don't know what else to say.
I think it's going to be a crazy year, and I want to get to a point where we're able to just jump live, like when something goes down, and just be, and all of us just gather.
Yep.
And this place can be like a point of contact for all of us to.
That's a great idea.
Like a rendezvous point,
Sure. You know what I think I'm going to do is set up a publicly accessed Telegram thread or a room on there for that purpose, so
Perfect.
that we can have a Wander Beyond Telegram site where people can feel safe jumping in and telling stuff as it's happening. Give us leads and things that we can follow up, that we can go live online and start putting this stuff out there. We'll do that. We'll create like a centralized place where our wanderers can shoot their thoughts and things that they're seeing live on the ground.
Yeah.
That'd be good. We'll have to do that. All right. Well, this was episode 4. Got 4 in the books, Jay.
All right. A lot more
Thank
coming.
you, everyone who has taken the time. I know that everybody's lives are busy, and so I sincerely appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your week to listen to us ramble on with incoherent Midwest accents. Yeah. Until next episode, keep wandering.